It's already on screen, sir.
Okay.
Let's use this.
Actually?
One next time, previous.
Okay. Good afternoon, friends. Post-lunch is always a formidable challenge, and that too a sumptuous one. I'd only like to say that there is some continuity with the previous session in what I have to say. And I say so because, again, many issues in social development do not lend themselves to very narrow departmentalism or very narrow perspectives of looking at issues. The issue of cash transfers, which I've been asked to speak about, I will come to it. But just as a background, as was clear in the case which was just being presented by the chair, there is no substitute for good services in human development. Any amount of cash transfers will not improve the health indicators or the education indicators unless and until it is backed by provision of quality services. What we often forget is that if Brazil did what it did so after provision of universal primary education and universally primary health care. Yes, the Bolsa Familia, additional disposable incomes in the hands of the poor for conditional cash transfers, for ensuring that people seek services of a system that is in place. In the absence of a system, I'm afraid there are limits to what cash transfers do. But having said that, there are a few examples that we do need to look at, and in that context, very quickly, from across the sectors, without going into the issues of very quickly, just these sectors you are familiar with, and I realize that 7 minutes is all I have, so one needs to rush through. Clearly, cash is no substitute for provision of basic services, the first point that I made. The rationale, yes, it sounds very attractive, money in the hands of the poor for them to decide what they want to do, but again, these are sectors which require the provision of quality services. If in spite of any amount of money is in the hands, in a remote tribal hamlet in Bastar in Chhattisgarh, if the services of a surgeon or a gynecologist or an anesthetist is not there, how do we ensure a safe delivery? I think these are issues we need to look at before considering that this seems the only option. But having said that, there are contributions which it makes, and I think some of the examples I just share with you. One of the major examples has been the one on institutional deliveries, Janani Suraksha Yojana, which was started off on the assumption that demand-side financing will bring more women for institutional deliveries to facilities. Yes, it did bring them to the facilities, but did it necessarily translate into a safe delivery? Did it necessarily translate into what we had desired? As studies have revealed, there are issues. While yes, the numbers have gone up substantially, there has been a gain if you look at purely in terms of institutional deliveries, and especially in states hitherto so-called the Bimaru states or states where the indicators were poor, institutional deliveries have gone up between 55 to 70, 80% in states like Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Assam. But not all of it translated necessarily into quality services available to women. Now this again one has to visit very cautiously, because if JSY were to be launched without the interventions for strengthening public health system under the National Rural Health Mission, perhaps the results would have been even more difficult. Because unless and until basic provision of services was available, even if demand-side financing had brought pregnant women to the facilities, what care could have been provided? So clearly there is a relationship between conditional cash transfer and provision of services. The second sector which I look at, more easier one, and from my state of Bihar, many of you have heard about it, the program of girls getting cycles if they enroll in class 9th. And of course it was extended to boys as well later. What we find on the ground is a real success story. Yes, money in their hands, money for cycles, money for uniforms, money for scholarships. After all, poor families need disposable incomes for their participation to go up in institutions like a school or a health facility. Clearly, higher disposable incomes through cash transfers did facilitate the process. If I look at numbers, in Bihar, my province, 2005, of those who wrote the 10th standard secondary examination board exam, only 1/3 used to be girls, 2/3 used to be boys. 2013, that ratio is 56-44, and I can say with reasonable confidence, in the next 3 years, it will perhaps be closer to 50-50. And among other factors, the provision of additional disposable incomes, provision of cycles to be able to reach where they need to go. And it is in this context, on the issue of girls' education, I would like to bring up an issue that I raised in the previous one. When I argued for a common institutional and governance platform for human development, the idea is not to break the compartments as far as allocation of resources are concerned. From my own state, I'd like to give an example related to this, which is making a difference. And that is, Bihar has been the first state to set up a cabinet committee on human development. A cabinet committee which has adopted for the state about 16 to 18 indicators drawn from education, health, age at marriage, whichever problems the state has, water and nutrition issues, sanitation issues, those 18 indicators adopted by a cabinet committee on human development are being monitored at all the levels. The ideal situation is that what the state cabinet monitors ought to be what the community monitors at the household level, what the community, the panchayat monitors at the gram panchayat level. The point I was making was, let this institutional arrangement come in, it will save a lot of graft. Today, one problem of overlap which came up in passing the ICDS and the midday meal program. Where is the 5-year-old eating his meal? Is it the ICDS center or is it the MDM? Or are both charging for it? Unless and until we create a common platform, we will keep doing silo committees, 7 committees to manage 7 programs. No community member knows which committee they are on. For effectiveness, you need a platform on human development without sacrificing monies. But what that common platform also facilitates is thinking in a different perspective. Let me just share one example related to girls' education. In our state, Bihar, we have very high fertility rates, the highest in the state. And because of that, what is the immediate response? The immediate response, although we need to do much more on population stabilization through family welfare programs. But when you look at the data, what does it tell you? When you look at the SRS data, it tells you that whether it is Bihar or Kerala or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, if girls have enrolled in higher secondary education, fertility rates are below replacement level. If they go up to for secondary education, fertility rates are equal to or below replacement level. Clearly, the answer lay in expansion of educational opportunities for girls. And that is exactly what the state did because it had a common platform. When the Human Development Cabinet Committee met and a presentation was made that, look, Bihar and Kerala, if the girls have studied up to class 12th, age at marriage is going up, fertility rates are coming up, replacement level fertility is the case in both. So these are the challenges. A lot of the intersectoral thinking and linkage comes in when you work on a common platform. And I think that's the argument I have been trying to make because my view is outcomes can never be fixed unless and until you start working together. Because the way they are interrelated, if a child doesn't do well in school, the teacher will turn around and say, look, the child was malnourished. There is a permanently debilitating impact on learning ability of the child. What do I do? And you have no answer. Unless and until a common platform is created, where you actually look at outcomes and where communities discuss outcomes. Let us not undervalue the role of the community. Unfortunately, what is happening is, in monitoring pupils' progress in a school, in a lot of other things, our assumption is that parents, will they be able to do it? Yes, they will be able to do it. They know the worth of good education for their children. So what we really need to move towards is a framework where we trust communities with understanding these issues. The last point I'd like to make on this, early childhood development does not lend itself to cash transfers as easily as some of these other sectors do. And I say this because a 0 to 3 age child is a high human intensive support required. For some of my friends here who've seen the work of the Jan Swasthya Sahyog in Ganiyari in Bilaspur, I would advise whoever can visit them to go and see what they are doing. The 56 phulwaris that they run for the 0 to 6 months to 36 month children, the point that they are trying to make is, in India at 6 months, barely 14 to 15% is the level of undernutrition. And you reach 24 months, it reaches 47%. After all, what is going wrong there? Are we attending to that? And the answer clearly lies that feeding a child, complementary feeding for a child at that 6 months to 36 months is a time-consuming process. Mothers who are working as agricultural laborers don't have so much time. It's a process where a lot of factors with regard to hygiene, health, everything requires a full-time care. So the argument clearly is that mere THRs taken home, take-home rations, is no solution for this. And I think when Meenakshi was making the point about investments for children, I for one believe that we have underinvested in the 0 to 3. Our thrust should have been the 0 to 3 if that is where the main issue and problem of undernourishment lies. If we are able to respond to that, clearly the results that we'll get at the end of it are going to be very different. And it's highly person intensive. If you meet the Phulwari workers who work there, they get about 3,000 rupees a month. But the kind of service which is expected of them, when you keep 6 month and 36 month children in a center, it means everything. From their ablutions to everything, whatever is required to be done has to be done by the community worker. It's not an easy process at all. Now, unless and until we realize this balance, up to a point, for example, I for one, my personal view is that Janani Suraksha Yojana is no longer required now. If institutional deliveries have become the norm, let that money go into improvement of quality of services. So what is good at one point of time may need modifications and change thereafter, because it's not all the time that quality services are possible only by transfer of cash. It can work for increasing, enhancing the disposable income through scholarships, money for uniforms, family making a decision with regard to which cycle to buy, all is well. But when it comes to provision of intensive services, we have to get the balance right. Thank you, and sorry for estimating that.